Welcome back, everybody, to Empyrion Galactic Survival. I'm an old guy gaming, and this is part 7 of the Getting Started tutorial. Getting Started in Empyrion tutorial. So, a couple things before we continue on where we left off. I've received some comments from a few of you. Thank you very much for those comments, by the way. And I have a couple of things to go over that we talked about earlier. So I guess the first thing is I got my notes up here. I was showing you guys quests in, I don't know, part 2 or part 3, I can't remember, and I was trying to advance it for you, and it wasn't working. And the reason is because I hadn't actually activated the quest. So if you have the quest activated, and let's just close that, and then you go back into the to the PDA. Then you can advance the quest by clicking in these boxes here. And then it's just going to say, hey, are you really sure you want to do this? And if I say yes, then it advances the quest, and then I can advance the next one, and so on and so forth. And again, we talked about the reason why you would do that is if you happen to... here, I'm going to deactivate that now. Sometimes these quests can bug out on you, and... or, here's an example. In my Let's Play series... that I just recorded and that will be out tomorrow, I was salvaging some components off of a ship that the quest will lead you to, and I accidentally salvaged one of the components that the quest needed. Just kind of did it inadvertently, didn't mean to. And so when I got to that part in the quest, I couldn't proceed because the quest wanted me to access something inside of that device that I picked up, and so the only way I could proceed is to just manually advance it. Okay, so basically you generally will only do that if there's some issue, whether it's a bug or in my case something that you did or that I did, that you can't continue the quest until you get past that part. Otherwise, it'll advance automatically as long as everything's working. Okay, so I wanted to clear that up. Now, I also, in, I don't know, part 2, 3, or 4, one of those very early episodes, we were going through and looking at the tech tree. No, we weren't looking at the tech tree. We were talking about something, and a land claim block came up. And at that point, I was, I had forgotten or didn't know where the land claim was, and it's actually right here. Okay, so it's in the base tab, and it's called a land claim device. And this does work exactly the way that it does in like 7 Days to Die. Essentially what you do is you set it down, and then it will basically make a certain area around your base immune from attack from other players. Okay, so, and as you know, it's another one of those things that is in the game that I knew was in the game, but I've never actually had to use it because most of the servers that I've played on are PvE servers, and I usually only play on servers with people that I know anyways, and just don't really have a problem with PvP issues, and so I've never actually had to use this device. But that's where it is. Just wanted to point that out to you in case you are actually going to use this potentially in your game if you're doing PvP. And again, you don't need this at all in single player, of course. It's totally a PvP thing. Okay, so we got that out of the way. We had talked a little bit about setting devices to public. I can't remember exactly what it was that I had when we were talking about that, but you generally don't actually set devices to public in a single player game anyways because it's a single player game. There's nobody else around but you, right? One exception to that, though, actually, is that the damaged hoverbike itself is actually set to public. Just because that's the way that the game spawns it in. There's something that's important that I will point out to you about this too, that somebody brought up in the comments, and that is that when you get yourself a multi-tool, all right, so I'm talking about this thing right here. When you get a hold of this and you have the charges for it, this tool has the capability of removing hull blocks or components when you salvage. But the survival tool does not. So when I salvage something with the survival tool, it's going to break it down to its components. It's not going to give me whole blocks back. So You know, and I've had a couple of people actually bring this up in the comments before too, in the past, and more recently. You know what you can do and what you actually need to do if you're on one of the more hostile planets, like the snow planet or the arid planet, is you need to replace this cockpit with a closed cockpit. Okay, but if you have the survival tool, you can't take the cockpit off of here whole. You can only take it off down to its components because the survival tool does not have the ability to take full blocks off of, you know, a structure or a vessel in this case. So the only way that you're going to be able to get this off of here whole is if you have a a multi-tool and you have the charges, and it's very unlikely that you're going to have either one of those things at the time in the very early game that you're going to come across the hoverbike. Okay, so what I'm getting to, though, and where it kind of comes back to the whole public-private idea is this. If you do have a multi-tool, and you want to take, say, for example, the damaged hoverbike, the cockpit off the damaged hoverbike and keep it whole, the first thing you have to do is you have to set this to private, okay? Because if it's left on public, and notice it's not even going to let me put it back on public now that I have set it to private, which isn't a problem for us because this is a single-player game anyway. But if you leave that on public, then you can still salvage stuff off of it, but you can't get the blocks back whole. Or at least you might only have a small chance of getting the blocks back whole. Okay? So all that's to say, at any point in time in this game, if you want to retrieve full blocks, you have to first own the device, and then you have to make sure that the device is set to private. That's generally not going to be a problem for you in a single-player game, with the exception of the hoverbike, which comes in as a public vessel at the beginning of the game. But then, as you can see here, once you change it to private, then it's private from here on out. I can't change it back to public. I don't even know why Elion left that thing public on why it is on public on single-player games. That doesn't make sense, but it might just be, you know, an oversight on their part, or maybe they do have a reason for putting it in single-player games as public. I'm not sure. But anyways, that's the way that it works. Okay, so I think that covers everything we have talked about so far. You know, just to kind of follow up on a few things from earlier. So let me close this. And, whoops, hold on a second. Okay. And let's go ahead and get started in this episode. So, what are we going to do? We were going to go ahead and work on finding a base location and get started with that. So, what I usually like to do when I'm ready to start thinking about having a base, and by the way, the reason we need a base is mostly because we can't access the higher tiered stuff, like the small constructor, and then after that the large constructor, unless we have a base to put it on. So we can't really stay nomadic in this game and advance. We need those things to advance in the game and to make, you know, the better stuff and all that. So we need a base for that reason alone, let alone, you know, any other particular reason. Now, and then of course, you know, there's the more obvious reasons. There's the shelter. You know, we want a place to, you know, store all of our stuff and all that sort of thing too, which are also valid reasons, of course. But you know, we really have to do that until you know, before we can go any further than we are at right now in terms of obtaining the better stuff. Okay, so that's what we're gonna do. Now, what I will normally do in a Let's Play game that I'm doing is I'll go around in the hover vessel here, and I'll just kind of look for a good spot to build my base. And that's, for me anyways, that is usually more done for location. In other words, I like to find a nice place to build the base, because this is a beautiful world. You know, Empyrion makes some really neat looking worlds. And I want to find a nice location, like, you know, on the edge of a lake or on a mountaintop. I've built bases underground, in caves that I've burrowed out, on cliff tops, on cliff sides, underwater. I built a big underwater base way back in Alpha 7. Boy, that was a pain in the ass. But I did it, and it was really cool. And so really it's just a matter of, for me anyways, finding a really cool location to do it. For our tutorial here, though, I'm not really going to do that so much, but what we might do is we might go ahead and just go to the top of that hill there, and maybe we'll just build something basic onto the top of the hill. I'm going to show you, basic building stuff, both for bases, and also we'll do a real simple build of like a small vessel, and maybe even a new hover vessel. I don't know, we'll see, but small vessel for sure, just to kind of show you the basics of building and that sort of thing in the game too. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Maybe that hill right up there would be a good spot for us to do that. So what I want to do is, oh, you know what? It looks like stuff in the output of the constructor will not keep from spoiling. I think that's new, because it seems to me like it used to be that it would if you kept it in here, just like when you keep it in your survival constructor, it doesn't spoil, but apparently that's no longer the case. Or maybe it's never been the case and I've just been confused all along. That's entirely possible too. So anyway, okay, so disregard what I said in the last episode where if you keep stuff in the output it won't spoil. It does spoil. Speaking of spoiled food, by the way, this is actually useful. It's not something you want to throw out because you need it to make what are called crop plots. So this survival game requires you to make a crop plot, which is a special block. Think of it just as a big ass planter, right? And then inside of that you will plant some kind of a crop, like a food crop. So the spoiled food is needed for that. So you do want to hang on to spoiled food when you get it. Don't just throw it out, at least until you get your farm built, and then after that, then it's not really all that useful. So yeah, we've lost a few things, but that's because we don't have any refrigeration in here. We just have the constructor itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick this constructor up. This one's got all the fuel in it, so that's good. So to do that, I'm just going to hold down Shift and F and pick it up. And let's see if we can put this inside of our damaged hoverbike. We've got one cargo box, and it only has 125 volume, so it's really, really small. But if we can get the constructor in there and see, we've already filled it up just with 11 fuel. What about the fuel? Let's put that in there. Okay, so that fills the tank all the way up, and it still leaves us one fuel left that we could use for our chainsaw. What does our chainsaw look like in terms of fuel? Yeah, it's still got a few charges, so I don't want to burn that fuel tank unnecessarily. So anyways, what I can do now to pick this up, if I think I'm going to be able to hold all of this stuff in my inventory, rather than sit here and individually shift-click everything into my inventory like that, I can simply just pick it up, and what it does is it drops everything on the ground, and then in the container I've got the arrow that moves everything directly to my inventory, so it's just a little faster. Just be careful of that, though, because if I wasn't able to pick everything up, this is only going to last for a short period of time. I think it's like, if it has something in, I think it lasts for like 3 minutes. If as soon as you empty it, then it disappears in less than a minute. So, just make sure that if you do something like that, you are going to be able to pick all of it up. Okay? Let's go ahead and sleep, just so we have daylight. And then I'm going to Shift F on the tent to pick it up. And then we'll get on our hover vessel. And, so I was thinking about this little hill here, just to put our base right up here on top of this hill. It's not a bad spot. It's got a nice view of the water, and being close to water is useful as well. Okay, that red thingamadoodle over there, that's probably what's called a spider's nest. So if you go over there, it'll spawn a bunch of spiders that will want to try and eat you. They're giant spiders. And then if you break into the nest, there's usually some very basic loot inside of it. So yeah, this little hilltop's actually not a bad place at all. We got a really nice view of the lake there with the mountains off in the distance. And it's close to water, and that's what I was going to say. Being close to water is useful because you have these things called water generators that you want to build, and you have to put them in the water. They don't have to be in deep water. You just put them right off the shore. And what they will do is they will then create water for you, which you then need for a variety of things like producing oxygen and other things like that, okay? So being next to the water is definitely useful. Now, if you're not next to the water, what I will do is, you know, I'll just take the generators down to the nearest water to my base and set them down, and then, you know, let them do their thing, and I'll just come back at some other point in time and get, you know, the load and bring it back with me. But if you can keep it close to your base, it is definitely more useful. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. This is a nice, actually a really nice hill here. It's fairly level on top. We got a decent amount of space. So let's kind of move the hover vessel. I just want to see, yeah, probably right about where that tree is. It starts to, you know, it starts to curve down. So maybe where the little yellow flowers are would be kind of where we'll put the front of the building, essentially. Okay, let's talk about viewing and zooming and all that sort of thing. You've probably noticed, you know, that I've been able to switch my camera mode, and you can use this whether you're in a hover vessel, a small vessel, a capital vessel, just, you know, walking around, you know, not being in anything at all, so it's just in your own body. But there's a couple things you can do. So the normal, when you get into a vessel or a capital ship or whatever, your normal view is just this, right? So, you know, you see yourself in third person mode, and no, actually, you know, you might actually be in first person mode. So let's just talk about that first. The key that you use to switch between first person and third person is V for view, okay? So this is first person, and this is third person, and it just toggles back and forth, all right? So you'll use that a lot because in some cases it's more useful to be in third person, and then in some cases it's more useful to be in first person. Now, I do not really, in most situations, I don't really like to be in third person when I'm in my body, when I'm just walking around. Just because for me, the control of the character is a little bit, I don't know, it works. I mean, you can certainly do it, right? But I don't know, I feel more comfortable myself in first person when I'm in my body. The one exception to that is when I'm swimming in the water. I like to go into third person there, just because it's kind of neat to, well, you have a better view for one thing, but it's just kind of neat to watch your character swimming around, you know? And sometimes if I'm doing any kind of in spacewalking, I might go into third person for that too. But for the most part, I just stay in first person when I'm walking around. Okay, that is a matter of preference. Some people might like to be in third person all of the time, and if you do, more power to you. But I just find it easier to just be in first person. Okay, so you try both methods, and then you use the one, of course, that works best for you. So V key switches between first person and third person. Now, there's another really important key, and that key is the left Alt key. So when I press the left Alt key, I go into free camera mode. And then what I can do is I can pivot the camera. I'm just using my mouse to do that. This is all mouse controlled. You don't need any keys on the keyboard to move. Then I'm in free camera mode, and then I can look around. Now, remember, we talked about how Empyrion is a big building game. A lot of what you do in this game is you build, and some of the things that you build can be really large. And so it's super useful to be able to zoom way out like this and look around, particularly, you know, if you're looking at something that's a little bit larger. And you can use that same method when you're inside of a vessel too, right? So if I am in my vessel here and I press V to get into third person, and, you know, as far as vessels go and small vessels, I switch back and forth. Sometimes I like first person view, and sometimes I like third person view, or maybe cockpit view. If I'm in combat, I will usually be in first person because it's easier for me to see and control the crosshair. And in other cases, you know, I'll do first person too, but then a lot of times I'll go into third person. So, you know, again, it's just kind of a matter of preference. You'll have to experiment with it and do whatever works best for you. Anyway, so right now I'm just in normal view, but now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit my left Alt key, and here again, now I'm in camera mode, and I can pivot my mouse around and look at my vessel from all different angles. Now, you can still drive the vessel or ride in the vessel, but you can't turn with the mouse when you're in camera view. Okay? You can strafe, so use your WSAD keys, you know, you can still move that way, and it is possible to turn in third-person view, or I mean in camera free mode view, but you have to use your arrow keys on your keyboard. And that's a little awkward because you need, you know, your right hand, well, assuming you're right-handed, your right hand is already on the mouse. And you need your left hand on the WSAD keys, you know, for to thrust and to move forward. So it's a little bit weird. Essentially you have to take your hand off the mouse in order to turn. Ooh, we got a little error there, didn't we? When you're in camera mode, okay? So it just takes a little bit of getting used to. But what I will usually do when I'm in free camera mode is I'll use, if I can, I'll usually strafe if I'm going, you know, forward and I need to dodge a tree or whatever, I'll usually just strafe. And if I do need to turn, then, you know, I'll just take my hand off the mouse long enough to use the arrow keys to turn whichever direction I need to, or I'll just hit the the left Alt key, and then I'll just be back into normal, you know, normal mode turn, and then switch back to camera mode after I've turned. So, you know, it's just a matter of how you want to get used to controlling your vessel. Okay, so here again, free camera mode is the left Alt key. Press left Alt, and you can look around with the camera, press it again, and then you're back into normal mode. So the V key and the left Alt key, you'll use them all the time. V toggles between first and third person, and left Alt toggles between free camera and fixed camera mode, I guess is what you would call it. Now, you can also do left Alt in first person too. So if I hit the left Alt key, now my character can actually look around while he's still sitting in the cockpit, which is kind of cool too. This is really fun and useful when you're inside, you know, of a ship and you have to sit down, but you want to look around a little bit, because in this game you can't. Oh my God, I can really turn my neck almost all the way around. You can't really. No, you can't at all. You have to be seated in a vessel when you're flying. And so if you're a passenger on a capital vessel or even a larger small vessel, you know, that ship, it requires everybody to be seated before the game will let it fly. And so, you know, if you're sitting down in a passenger ship and you want to just kind of look around, just hit the left Alt key and then you can do that, okay? So really good, very important keys to know for working with with this game, with the views in this game and so forth. Okay, so this is going to be our building site. I actually really like this site. I think it looks great. So what I'm going to do is let's just park the hover vessel kind of by this tree here. We don't want the vessel itself on the area that we're going to build. And then we're going to pop out of the vessel. Let's go ahead and cut the power on this now too, because we don't have a fridge on it, so there's no reason to keep it running. We'll pick ourselves some corn dogs here and just keep making those energy bars. But I need to eat the ones that are on my toolbar first, because those ones are you know, perishing. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look around up here a little bit. We got a couple stones and stuff that we're going to want to move out of the way so that we can build in that spot. This is actually a really fantastic location, guys, because, you know, we got the really cool view out that way. We got a fairly nice little flat hill here, but then we've got all of this space out here, which we could later on, if we wanted to, build a huge landing pad for like a capital vessel. So I really do like this spot. It's a nice place. So let's see. We got to get these stones out of the way. So we're going to go into resource drill. And oh, actually, before I do that though, let's put the constructors back down. And unload our inventory, because we're pretty full from all the stuff that we brought over here. So we're going to do that. Let's just pop these right here is good. And we have one in here as well. We'll grab it, and let's grab this too. Now, what I might even do at this point is do we have iron ore? Yes, we do. I'm going to make myself another portable constructor. And I might even make 2 more. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use one of these for general purpose use to make the stuff that we need to make. One of them is going to be dedicated to making blocks for us that we're going to build with, and then the other 2 I'm going to have make full-time fuel. So we're going to need to get some more wood, but we're not going to cut this tree down. We like this little tree. It's going to stay in front of our house as a little decoration. So we'll have to go over into the woods over there to cut a little bit more wood. So, yeah, let's go ahead and get these stones out of the way. And we can use this stone too for building. We're going to need it. Okay. So we're going to put these down over into our constructor. So this constructor here, the second one, we're going to call this one our block building constructor. So let's grab all of our stone. Where is all of our stone? Oh, it's right here. Okay. My eyes were expecting to find something else. And we've got a little bit of stone dust in here. I want to keep about, let's keep about 10 stone, because we need stone for a couple of other things too. So we'll keep 10 stone here in the main constructor in case we need it for something. I'm just going to put everything in here for the moment. Not that. And not those. Okay, I think we want to keep the rest of that in our own inventory for now. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go to the blocks filter and, make sure that I'm on the all objects tab. You could also be on the base tab too, but if you're on these other ones, then you're not going to see the blocks that you need. And then I'm going to start making a bunch of concrete blocks. Remember I told you yesterday, I think it was, that if you hold down the control key and then you click, you queue up 100. So shift click queues up 10 of an item, control click queues up 100. And I'm just going to start making a big bunch of these blocks. And what I'm going to do in this constructor is I'm going to make a base starter block. Okay, so let's talk about this. When you build something from scratch in Empyrion, you always have to start with a starter block. So we can do a base starter or a hover vessel starter here in our portable constructor. And I think we could also do a small vessel if we, whoops, what did I do? Small vessel right here. Maybe not. It looks like we probably cannot make a small vessel in a portable constructor. Because it doesn't look like we can make a small vessel starter block. So we probably have to have a small constructor to do that. And it looks like we don't only do a base and a hover vessel starter. Okay, that's fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this base starter. And what this basically is it's the core of the base. And it actually looks just like a core too, but it's a base starter block. So we need this to start with because it's going to be like the central processing unit of the base, but it's also the thing that allows us to start attaching blocks. Because here's the thing, I can't take an individual block like this and set it down. See how it's got the red outline? It won't let me set it down just any old place. It's got to be attached to a core. So that's why you've got to make your base starter block first. Well, how did that happen? I don't know. Okay, so that's making the blocks for us. All right, now, before we get started, though, with our actual building, I want to go into the woods here real quick and just get ourselves a little bit more wood so we can have those other constructors making up a bunch of fuel for us. Now, here's yep, there's definitely a spider's nest here. Man, this thing is like really squirrely. That's what a spider's nest looks like. I don't see any actual spiders around, but my guess is that they'll probably spawn if we get out of our vessel and walk up to them. Well, let's not mess with them right now. So I'm going to go a little bit further away from the base to cut the trees. Now, when you harvest resources, like, for example, cut trees down, as long as they are not within a certain distance of your base, they will respawn. And I believe they respawn when you log out of the game and come back in, I think. I'm not 100% positive about that, but they will respawn it at some point later on. But if they're really close to your base, then they will not respawn. Okay, so just kind of keep that in mind. That's why, you know, when I go to cut wood and I want to keep the trees that are around my base, I'll go far enough away to where that, you know, that's not going to be a problem. Okay, let's go ahead and cut some wood so we can get some fuel going, because we're going to need it for our base. All right, we've reached level 5. That's awesome. Level 5 is an important level to get to because it unlocks some higher level stuff that we're going to need. So we'll take a look at that when we get back to the base.